Okay. I think we can continue now. So, before starting the discussion, there is one more thing actually I want to note you out. So, VMs that are allocated for you will be repurposed in this weekend. So, what is like in case like tomorrow when we conclude the training? So, make sure guys that you're copying all of your materials and the things you want, and also the projects that you have been worked on uh, by tomorrow, right? So after the session, you can get them copied to your local machines or a shared point that you can keep all your information and all the files that you required, right? Because the VMs will be repurposed within the weekend. So at that time, after repurposing, you will not be able to access those VMs. So make sure when you're like using the VMs, once we done with the tomorrow session, you can get them copied and to maybe a local machine or something. So please get them copied, and if they're in kind of a document or a note that you have been like editing and adding all the information, so please get them copied as well, right? Okay, so that's the note actually I want to add before starting the discussion, and we could start the session now. So let's resume with the point that we stopped before we are going to the break. So before we are going to the break, I showed you how to like kind of like add a small information message when we are working. So here in this point, I have added kind of a success message. When it's done moving, this success message will be executed, and we will be able to get kind of a message that product successfully moved or something like that. Right, so that was the point we stopped when you're going for the break. But actually, I mentioned that there is another small issue with this dialog box. Even though now the functionalities are all working, still, if there is any kind of like a record that we don't have any kind of available quantity in a destination inventory, so there is kind of like a error popping us for us. So we'll have a look on that now. So what kind of an error and how we can scope down. So at this time, we will be um, getting the developer tool as well. So the client is getting loaded. Let's give it a 1 to 2 minute. Okay. So from the more details, I'm going to get developer tools here, right? And let me keep it aside. After that, we can have different, maybe something like this. And here we don't have any available quantity. So when I'm trying to move 5 or something to that, I'm getting an error like field company ID is mandatory for field and there is a required value, something like that. So there is an kind of an error popping up here, right? So if we are trying something else, maybe, okay, it has quantity, maybe something that we don't have quantity. Mm, okay, all things. Okay, this one. So same error we are getting. So the thing is now we should find where is this error is coming up. So in the developer tools also now you will be able to see that there are different calls are here mapped, and we getting error like this. And at that point, if you go for the payload, so you can see that all the data is there. But if you go to kind of here in the preview, we are getting that there is kind of a database error and something like that. If you go to the responses, there is also mentioning that there is a database error occurred, and there is kind of like a message here given as this field company ID is mandatory, and it required a value or something like that. So as you can see here, this is kind of related to database end, not the um kind of like something that is popping up from client end, because even though you can see here all the values are passing, and it's mentioning that it's a database error that is coming here. So it's mentioning that all the information, okay, this is coming from database end, not from the client end that we have developed. So what we can do is at these points now, even though we are getting this error, we are not like able to see from where we are getting this error. And if you can see here now, when we are only having zero, then only we are getting this issue. But if there is any kind of a value here, then we don't get such issues. Like that way, you are aware with the situation. So now let's try to get this scope down, right? So we don't have much idea from where this database error is issued. So in order to find where this is being like issued and from where this issue is popping up and how to look into that and all the things, what we can do is we can do kind of an investigation. So most probably this error should be popping up from the util one, because the other part it's working now. We are sure that it's working, but sometimes it might be causing from here, right? Because from here when you are passing values, there might be some issue that is raising from this method, this procedure. Because other things we are okay that they are coming from proper end and we have done the development, okay, that's fine. But now we know that it's coming from the database end. It means they are coming from these database files, so PLSQL files and all the things. So this TRN inventory product util PLSQL, it's a PLSQL file, and there we have the procedure. So sometimes this might be causing this issue, but still, if we have a look on that, it's also in a vast range. We don't know from where this is actually getting this error. So what we can do is the best way is that we can scope it down. It means we could get a scope, okay, which point this error is pointing out. Then we can investigate that part. Like that way, we can go into deeper by making the scope lighter and lighter. In order to do that, we can do kind of an investigation, and also we have kind of a tool to do that. So before going into any kind of a scenario, let me show you the tool, right? So maybe I'll minimize this. So now previously what we used here was this developer tool from the Google itself. We are getting the developer tool. Okay, I think I have accidentally minimized that one as well. So let's get this client first. Right. So what we use first is from the developer tools that we are getting from the Chrome. But now, actually, there is something that is provided from the Arena or the client framework as well. It means from the client application, we are getting a tool as a for a debugging purpose. So how you can do is you can go to the information icon here. So it's currently IFS application known. So you can click on that. When you click on that, there will be some kind of an option list will list down here. So in my scenario, it's okay. Now you can see there are some options available here. In there, we have a specific option that we can use for debugging purposes. So if you go to this debug option, so you can first go into that. So you can see it's also having sub entries. Let's have a look. Okay, kind of like stucking this one. So let's try to access this list once again. The drop down, you can go for the debug option here. Okay, why I'm not getting it? I hope all of you can get it. So there actually you have an enable debug console option, right? So you can go for that, right? So in scenario, it's currently okay. I think it will work now. Right. So you can see enable log window, enable debug console. So you can go for this enable debug console now. So when you click on that, you will be getting kind of a window, or not actually a window, a subsection here. right? Can you also try that out? And if you're able to see this debug console, please give me a raise of hand. What you need to do is you can go for this option here. From that, you have to go for debug. And from here, now since my debug console is enabled, it's showing me disable in debug console. But ideally, if you haven't get this window, you should be able to get here as enable debug console. So you can click on that. From that, you will be able to get kind of a subsection like this, right? So once you're done, can you all give me a raise of hand if you're able to get this?
Can you undock it, like make it separate from the browser?
This one, no, Roy, we are getting it like this.
Okay, so you cannot open it in a different window, right?
Yeah, yes. Like previously in the developer tools, we can dock it and we can place it where we want it. But here it's not like that, Roy. This is something that is provided from the framework itself. So actually, we cannot place it as we wish.
Yeah, like in the .NET client, you could have it as a separate window and then you keep it
Yeah,
minimized.
exactly. We could we can get the debug console separately, and if we want, we can keep it on top, or otherwise we can like minimize and later on we can go into that. But the thing is, here we cannot do so, Roy. Hope it's clear for you.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to know.
Okay. Okay. Hope all of you able to get it. Anyone having any difficulty while you are trying to get this debug console enable? Hope all fine. Then we'll continue. So this is actually something that is provided from the framework itself for the debugging purposes. So you can see that we have three tabs here, right? So these are helping us a lot in investigation purposes, right? So what we can do is let's go one by one and have a look on these information. So first of all, I'll go for the page information, page info tab. Now, if you go to the page info tab, you will be able to see a lot of information related to this current page. So, what is the logical unit that this page is connected to? What is the projection that is connected to? Entity set, entity. Then, what is the view this page is connected to? And what is this component that is depend with this particular page? And regarding the page element also, there are a lot of information, right? So the logical unit name, element name, entity set, entity, a view, and from there are different kind of element content also mapped here. So in case, like, let's assume now you are doing a kind of a customization, and at that point there is something kind of a change that you need to do for an existing window. The thing is, you are not know, you're not aware what this window is connected to. I mean, what is the logical unit this window is connected to? What is the projection that this window is connected to? You can simply get the debug console from here, and from that you can go for the page info and have a look on what are the information here. Then you will be able to get the information that you want. What is the projection, entity set, logical unit name, view, maybe the component, all the information you can get from this page info, right? So now in previous scenario when we are working with developer tool, like we were able to get the server calls and all the things. So if you want to see the server calls from this tool, what we need to go for it, this server inbox. right? If you go for this server invoke, there you will be able to see all the server calls that is going through this. It means all data calls and all the things. So by being in this server invoke, you will be able to see there is another section available here, another kind of a tab section: framework, application, SQL, API Explorer, categories. So actually these tabs are also helping us in some points when we are doing debugging. So let's assume now there is a kind of a there is kind of like a SQL codes that we need to check. So what we can do is we can simply click on this and we can go for the SQL. So you can see there are some information being mapped here. We are select here, select entity name from view from table, something like that. So projection handling, some codes are going here. Maybe if I go for move products and something like this, let's try to get something like this. So you can see now the server calls are being listed here. And if I go to, so if we want to investigate on the server calls that been going on, we could simply click on that one, right? We can click on that server call and we can see from here what are the things. So maybe I'll go to this. So you can see that there is a select method here, right? There is a select, and from that we will be looking into branch ID, company ID, and there is some kind of a filtration going here as well where the company ID is TCS. So like you can see now when we get the branch ID here, what will happen is it will be filtered out according to the company. So there are some filtrations happening here and there are some calls going on here. So these are related to SQL. Let's assume now we want to go for the like we want to look into the application end part. So there are also some information being mapped here. Now I'm going to show you by using this application tab. If you want to get the scope, like if you want to minimize the scope, or if you want lighter the scope, and if you want to see where the error is popping up in the base event, we could use this. So let me show you for how we can do that, right? So I'll first clear this. So you have actually a clear button here, right? By using that, you can clear your debug console. And I'm going back to my developer studio. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a package, a framework package known as traces. So using traces, what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace how the calls are going on, and I'm trying to look into where this error is popping up. In order to do that, now we are sure that okay, this is not coming from the client end. This is something related with the base event. So it's mentioned that previously also it's something related to database error. So what we can do is now I'm getting this file and I'm trying to look into which section actually this error is helping popping up, right? Which section this error is popping up. In order to do that, what I will do is I will kind of like having keep a couple of trace messages here and there to map where this been popped up. So let's try to add a trace message now, right? So what we can do is I'm keeping a error message, or not actually error message, it's a straight trace message. Okay, might go for a longer time when it's been fetching. So okay, right. Traces dot. We can go for, there are actually different kind of methods available in the traces package. So what you can do is you can go for traces and you can use the help of IntelliSense. Then you will be able to get related methods with the traces package. From there I'm getting this message, and if you go for the message you can see what are the things here, and what kind of things that we can get from this message. Other than that, there are other kind of things too, right? So I'm going for a message, and there what I will do is, I'll have a message on this, right? I'm removing these things, all things. Okay, it got stuck. Let's try to remove this section. And inside of that, I'm kind of like having a message something like start of call out, because you can see now here this is something related with the out direction. So I'm kind of like having a message here as start of call out. So from that I can narrow down the scope which this error is coming up, right? So start of the call out. Right. I'm having a message like that. So I'll have a duplicate one in the middle as well here, like end of the call out, something like that, right? In order to narrow down the scope that I'm getting this error from. End. End of call out. Then again, I'm having another kind of a trace message here. Right? Somewhere around here. Okay. So I'll have it as end of call in. So I have made two section in my method move items, out one and in one. So I want to check whether which section is getting this error. So I have added two, not actually two, three trace messages. So I mentioned here as start of call out, end of call out, end of calling, right? So what I will do is I'll save this, and after that I'll generate code and deploy this file. Okay, it being deployed. Now let's go to here, our client application. And here what I'm trying to do now is, let's select a record. View, okay, sorry, not the view products actually. Right. First I'll empty this one, okay, move products. And let's try to get a blank one or zero one. It's zero here. And I'll try to move something. Now I'm getting an error. So we know that it's coming from here. And if you go to the application tab, now previously we were looking into the SQL tab. So here other calls also you can have a look, right? Maybe in the first call you can see some information here and some SQL code going on. In the second one, you can see there is kind of a select method call is going on, and also there are some things related to application as well. The next one, you will be able to see same in the application, but if you go to the SQL, there are some other kind of things. And if you go to the next call, get destination quantity, we'll see what will there. Okay, there is a select all from table, and there are some information we are trying to get, and from the application end also we are able to see some information here. But now we know that this is the place that we are getting the error. So let's try to select on that. And if you go to the SQL, now you can see here there are some calls going on. But if you go to the application end, you can see the trace messages here. So start of the call out being handled. It means that part is executed. And end of call out is also there. But you can see that end of call in is not there. So what we can understand from that point is there should be kind of an issue from this section. Otherwise we should able to, if it's successfully executed, then we should be able to get here as end of call into. But the thing is, you will be able to see now we don't get such kind of thing. That trace message is not showing in our debug console. Then we are aware that the issue should be coming from this section, because this trace message is not executing. So something is wrong from this section and some kind of an error is popping up from this section. So what you can do is you can go into this move item method. So it's supposed to be on tr and inventory product APY. Mm, yeah. So if I go to that part and show you, now we know that this is something related with direction in coming section, right? So upper part it successfully compiled without any issue, but this one is not working because this trace message is not getting there. So we are aware that okay, there is something wrong with this in section. So what you can do is you can also add trace messages for this, and by adding trace messages here and there, you can make this scope much narrowed, right? So you can narrow it lighter and lighter by adding trace messages and see whether from where you are getting this error. So first you can have something here, you can have something here, maybe if you like you can have something here and you can have something here. So you will be able to see which parts or which traces that you are getting in your debug console like this. And you will be able to look into which section that you are not getting. So then you can investigate into deeper. Okay, then if it's that's the section, what will be the reason that we are not getting it such case? Like that way you can go into deeper and deeper from using these traces messages, right? So what I will do is now I'll give you this trace sys one as well, so you can also try this out, right? So I'll give only one, right? So you can add this and check like this. So you can get the debug console. So I got a raise of hand from you all that you are able to access the debug console. So you can get something like which you don't have a available quantity for the destination, and try to see whether you are getting an error like this. And you can have trace messages and see whether in the application tab like this. And you can like narrow down it a bit, and you can try to investigate more into deeper and a deeper. So maybe I'll put this in the notepad too. So you can use this kind of trace messages in order to in order to debug the base server end section or the PLSQL files, right? Okay. Maybe I'll give you around 3 to 4 minutes to try this out. And after that, let's continue with the next point of how we can have a look into the other sections. Like there are some theory sections that I want to complete too. So let's have a look on that part as well. And yeah, so if you have any questions related to that, you can let us know too. And after that, we'll like move forward with the discussion once you're done with this part, right? Okay. So I'll be on mute in case if you have any questions, you can let us know, right? And try
Okay.
adding trace messages. Yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
Nishant.
Tiny, I got a question. So, don't we say
Yes.
I mean, on the debug console, aren't we seeing the messages? I mean, the methods being called, unlike in Arena. Sorry, in IEE. I mean, in IE debug console, we can see
um
the what are the messages are being called. Because if you have a generous init method,
yeah.
but here we
So
can't
the
see them,
thing
right?
is actually, Nisha, we can't see them. So actually, one way is you can try using developer tools and try to like see what kind of things are getting here. But
But
other than
developer
that,
developer tools, we can see only the client side, right? We won't
yeah,
be
the
able to
server
see.
calls. We cannot see the database ones.
Yeah, I mean, let's say if you have like bunch of methods being called,
Mm-hmm.
and so I mean, to see where it actually error is popping out,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so it's easy if we can have like a what are the methods being called, and so then we can go to like last method and maybe put a traces and find out what is happening.
Yes.
Like,
So that's not available because here what we can do is like if we are aware on the path, then if mean like we can have a look
mm,
on the projection file and the client file. But the thing is, we have to have the trace procedures and have a look on how the method calls are going on. But there is no kind of like a functionality up there here that we can find what are the exact methods being called, Nishant. That's the case.
okay. Even in log, I mean, there are two options in the debug. We have the if you go to the debug, I mean, we can see
Yeah,
the. Can you go to the debug, please?
there are some information, but not exact the method here, right?
Mm,
So, like, there are page information and all the things, but we still like you can see that we get the command and all the things, but not the server calls that is going on
mm,
from here.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, in application forms development, we can like specifically have a look on which method or the which method being invoked. That's true, Nishant. But here actually we cannot have that much of information. Only the thing is we have to have trace messages and we could like investigate deeper and deeper to find the information, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Okay.
only way that we could do. But the thing is, from the client end, we can like investigate up to a certain point, like
Mm,
if there any kind of a course going on, and up to a certain point we can investigate. But like the database one, the better or the best way that we can use is the trace messages and go through the calls and see from which section this is being like handled and all the things like that way.
okay.
Tiny, when we start working with real customers and we don't have access to the Visual Studio, we would have to go into the actual API and put the traces or traps over there, right?
Yes,
Okay.
we have to add traces, and then only we like we can go for like these kind of calls and see what kind of messages and getting on. So in this point you will be able to see that here the error that we have added some trace messages. So at that point now I have added those things to the message trace messages to the API, APY file, sorry, the package, right? So from that, I can get okay. This section is not working. Then I have to go into deeper. It means like I have to make the APY file editable, and for that location, I could able to add a trace message, and then I can deploy it. And again we could like have a call going on. From that we can check whether okay this section is the error part or this section is working fine, then this might be the issue. Like that way we have to investigate. So like what you can do is like let's assume now there is kind of a package that we want to investigate like that, so maybe you could use the developer studio too. PLSQL developers, sorry, PLSQL developer. So if it's there, you can use that, and from that you can access any package that is in the database. So maybe you can get it as edit edit package option by right
Yeah.
clicking on that. From that you can add trace messages. So like make sure that you are not saving it back, but you can just have all the trace messages mapped, and later on once you done finding the error you can remove those things and move forward with your development, Roy.
Okay. So in this case, you would technically go to TRN inventory product API and put the traces,
Yeah,
or it would be traces field, I think, in this case.
sorry Roy, I didn't get you. Can you repeat
Yeah,
it again?
to get the actual value of the attribute, you would use traces field instead of message, right?
Exactly, we can add those kind of things to maybe I'll show you something like that. mm,
Yep. Okay.
Uh,
so let's assume now we can get something like this. So let's assume now I want to get the information, like I want to check whether the company ID value, whether this been passed or not. So for that, actually, either you can have kind of a concat value with the field name, or maybe you can just add the field and move forward with that as well. Let me show you an example. Let's assume we want to get the information about company ID, like this. So I could save this. This is I'm working in TRN inventory product prod util. So let me deploy this, and I could refresh this. Let's try to get a record here, and also I'll get the, sorry, I want to have the debug console up here. Enable debug console, and let me clear this first. Okay, so I'll get this move product dialog box, and then maybe I'll get a value here. All right. Now, if you can see here, we get the value for company ID. I just add it as a traces and the company ID parameter, so I could able to get the value for that. So if you want like to check whether all the values being fetched to all the parameters, you can add all the things, maybe concat them together as a string, and from that you will be able to get all the values as well. Hope it's clear for you.
any idea under the debug you have two options, enable log window. From that, any idea what sort of information we can get?
Um, Sampath, can you add any comment on that for the
Sorry, I
log
didn't quite
window?
hear. It was breaking.
Uh,
Nishanta, can you repeat the question, please?
yes, Sampath. Under the debug, you see
Okay.
the enable log window option.
Yeah.
Uh, do you have any clue what sort of information we can get from that?
It's actually similar to the, it'll also show you. So if you do some operations, it'll
Mm-hmm,
show you some logs, some server logs, and things like that, trace messages from the server. So
mm-hmm,
basically the database trace, you will see it on here.
mm-hmm.
So maybe Tiny, you can do some operation to see what it does. So maybe you do a move product.
Okay.
So if you can see,
Maybe.
it's a lot of things that's happening. So even bringing up the dialogue, it will actually you know it has a lot of information there.
Yeah, I'll get the here, right?
Yeah. So it will show you the origin will tell you where the trace is originating from. It could be
Mm.
database or the client. There could be different categories of origin. While it's it has a lot of information.
Mhm.
The debug console is kind of concise. So uh, so if you are really uh, trying to dive into something, you can use the this log window. Otherwise, it will show you all the things the client and the database is doing, even sending requests like every step that it is doing. But the debug console, it's more concise, and it
Mhm.
kind of has a operation by operation setup that you can scroll through.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Sampath. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, time.
Right. Okay, so we are normally using this one, right? So from there we are able to easily find the information actually regarding all the server calls going on. um, and one more thing regarding this, so now you will be able to see the values. So like what we were supposed to have a look on these, like will be like, is there any kind of a possibility that we can have a look on, sorry, so is there any kind of a possibility that we can have a look on values from these traces as well? Yes, it's possible. So we can have this kind of trace messages, and along with that we can have all the parameters or anything that we won't check. And from there we can like go through and have a look on whether these values being fetched properly or not. So maybe you can have concat, and then you can have kind of a string, add all the parameters together and say whether your information being properly filtered out for these parameters. You could possibly do those things. Yeah, so there is another question regarding DB method param direction. Uh, in once in and function return values. Okay. The thing is, regarding your question, Jana. So, hope you have an idea about these parameter directions.
Yes, that's exactly what
Yeah.
I'm asking about.
Okay. Like in means that we could only read data from those parameters, right? It means like, let's assume when we are trying to do kind of an update, right? So I'm hope that you are aware of object version and object ID.
Hmm.
Now, normally what will happen is when we are trying to do an update, the object version is kind of like a timestamp. It means it have a date. It consists data about when this record being updated or something like that. So let's assume now we are doing a new update for that particular record. So that object version is updating to the new timestamp. Now, if this time we are doing it, so based on our time, we are getting kind of a timestamp that at this time this record being updated. So what will happen is from the database end, like from the parameter side also, we are sending kind of an updated object version back to the database using these parameters here. So at that point, we will be using in out parameters because we will be reading values, and also we will be writing the values into that.
Okay, and the projection file, how can you specify that in-out direction?
We can have in outs, yes. So in when we are doing a method calls, we can have in out, but the thing is normally in function, since we are returning a value out, it means we are calling a particular method, and from there we are trying to return a value out from there. So normally we don't have any kind of out parameters on top. Simply what we are doing is maybe we have in parameters on top as parameters, and the value we need to send out we will be returning. So the, in your functions you might have seen that we don't have kind of out parameters in top.
Okay. And
Have you noticed
there
that?
is no in out as well, if I understood you well.
um in out I haven't seen. So Sampath, do we have in outs in the functions?
Yeah, the answer is that what we have to remember is when we are creating a projection, we are actually creating a OData service. So it's our way of specifying an OData service. So in OData, we don't have this concept of out or in out parameters. So parameters are
Okay.
always in.
Okay.
So therefore, we have this in. So maybe the remedy for if you have a problem where you might want to get multiple values out, what you can do is you can declare a structure, just like we created that move product structure yesterday, and your function actually can return a structure. So maybe you can try one of those things out. You create a structure and maybe create a function that returns that structure. So the return type is a structure then. And then what happens is from the function implementation, we can assign different values to different properties of that structure from within the function implementation. So if you that is kind of a remedy when you want to have in-out parameters, right?
Okay.
So I
I
guess
understand.
that will work.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Now, so hope you were able to get this as well. Didn't I give this in the chat? No, right? Okay, I have given it. Right. Okay. Um, Now it's fine, and I have given in the shared location too. So in case if you want it, you can use that. Right. So moving forward with the next point, then there are some things that I have to show you in the slides too, right? And how these values are getting on and all the things. So what we can do is okay. Right. So let's go to the slides as well. But before that, I would like to go through the workshop document once again. So we were in the dialog box, right? So we were actually working on this 13th exercise. And there we were able to try, like we were able to add these dialog box, and there we were able to add new commands to get these records values filtered here and to like transfer them to different inventories, and from one inventory we could able to transfer them to another one, and there is kind of like a calculation happening. And although these LOV functionalities for branch ID and inventory we were able to map them, right? That part we were able to complete. So these were previously completed, but today we were try to like get these things like to get the transition as well, like from one inventory we could able to get some kind of a stock, and then we can move into the other kind of a destination inventory. So that was we were able to complete. So up to this part we are all done now. So what you can do is maybe in your free time or when you have kind of a available time, you could have these kind of transit messages, sorry, traces messages, and then from that try to narrow down the error that you are getting when we are trying to add when we are trying to move a stock to a new record which doesn't have any kind of inventory or the quantity available value. So maybe you can add all the traces messages into that and try to narrow down the error and try to find out the error. But I'm not asking you to do it as a homework. I know that you are working on the things. So maybe in your free time on a available time, try to investigate this into deeper and check whether you are able to find the error where this issue is coming up, right? Okay, then the next thing is, since we have completed the dialog box from this part, we could actually go for the question number 14 as well. So 14 is something related with the assistant. So assistant is something that we still haven't looked into, and it's not something that we have yet discussed. So what we can do is, first I'll give you some time to go through this exercise 14, right? Try to read the points there, and after that I'll go through the slides related to this assistant, and I'll try to give you kind of a heads up on what is assistant and how we can implement assistant, kind of like a overall idea I'll give for you. And after that we can start the exercise, and let's try to get the hands-on experience by doing this exercise in an assistant, right? So but before that I want all of you to try this, or not actually try, you have to go through this one, right? Try to read this and try to get kind of an idea what we are supposed to do in this exercise. And there are some screenshots added for you to get an idea of how the interfaces are look like, should look like. So let's get some 1 to 2 minutes, and let's go through this first, exercise number 14, and after that we'll continue from this point, and let's go through the slides, and let's get some idea about assistant and how these things working and how it's been differed from the dialog box. And later on we'll start with the exercise, and we'll see what are the new things that we can learn from this exercise as well. Okay. Okay, so maybe you can now go through the exercise. After that we'll discuss from that point. I'll be on mute. If you have any questions, myself and Sampati is available, so let us know. Okay, so I hope that you were able to go through this. Right. So we are starting to discuss about assistants, and there we will be looking into new things like virtual, because virtual is something that is new for you, which you haven't still experienced. So we are going to work with virtuals too. And also when you are working with assistant, so the way that we are working assistant is kind of like different with the way that we are working with dialog boxes. So those things also we are going to discuss in this part. So if I give you kind of like an idea about assistant, so maybe if you can remember when we are discussing about different kind of containers, we mentioned that an assistant is a top level container, right? So it's a top level container. We are considering the assistant as a top level container. But the thing is, like when you are considering about dialog boxes, they are not considered as a top level container because like we are not considering it as a top level container because we are not actually connecting a specific logical unit with the dialog box. But here in assistant, we will be connecting things, right? When you are working, we will be connecting things so that there is kind of a specific things like when we are looking into assistance, when you are working with assistant, so that it's considered as a top level container, right? Okay, so when we are working on this now, if I point you out some information that is given in the exercise, so we are asked to create a new assistant, and there we are asked to work with a TRN country, and to that we are asked to add respective TRN area record. So that's kind of like a connectivity too in the system that we are looking into. And also the next point is there is an entry that we need to add it to the navigator in order to get the assistant. It means if you want to access assistant, we should have a navigator entry for that. And after that, in the third point, it's mentioning that we are asked to create virtuals. So this is something new for you. And for that, we are asked to give like these names: country virtual and area virtual. So those will hold country and area information. I'll show you what is these virtuals and what are the things that is being connected or created with virtuals. So don't you don't need to bother on those things because we will be having a look on these virtuals and what are the things that will be generated using these virtuals. And after that, the next point of it is that for the assistant we need to have two steps. One step, we will be creating the header record for the TRN country. It means the first part we will be working with the TRN country information, and the next command should be disabled until all the mandatory fields are given. So there is an interface given for you here. So these fields should be filled in order to enable the next command. Otherwise, it should be disabled. Kind of a validation is mentioning in this point. And in the first page we should be able to add information about country ID and country. The next part is it's related with the area information. So based on the given country, the depending areas for that, we can add the instances in the second page. So you can see there is a list is available in our system. So previously here it's kind of a group, and here we are having a list, and for that we can add respective area instances belong to the country that we have given in the first page. And there are some information here as well. So once the user presses finish command, the new TRN country and area related instances must be saved to the respective tables. For that, you have got some hints as well. So we have to uh, follow this PLSQL procedure in order to get all the values copied to the necessary tables. So why we have to do this part, I'll mention it later. Why we have to specifically copy the data from one place to another place. I'll mention it later. But for now, you just it's enough to have kind of an idea what we require to do in this assistant. And if we go with the slides as well, so there are some things actually I want to show you on the slides. So this is related with the dialog box and the assistant slide set, right? Dialog and the assistants. So there you have different information about dialog information and also assistant information. So maybe in your free time you can go through this as well, right? So there are informations related to dialogue. So you are currently aware with all the structure and all the things. And assistant is the new thing that we're gonna look into, right? So in assistant, it's also like consider as a wizard, right? So like in a wizard, what we are doing is we will be guiding the end user to go through a process step by step in order to enter some kind of a record or maybe some value set which are related together. So assistant is also the same thing doing, so that it's also considered as a wizard. So assistant also guiding the end user in order to add a record or add a kind of a value set, which is like having kind of a connectivity in between all those values, right? So when we are trying to add a record, maybe something like a vast record that we are adding to the database, so we could guide the end user using an assistant step by step to add those values. So then end user might not feel the complexity of that, because we are going through step by step guided path to add the record, right? So like if I give you an heads up with an example too, so what will happen here is, let's assume now um you have to enter information about country. So not country, actually a company. Maybe we could go for first page, a company name and company registration info. The second one may be company location, addresses, and all the things. So the third window we could have kind of like company employee information and all the things. Like that way, we could able to guide all the, like we could able to add all the records using assistant in a guided manner and in a step-by-step manner. So it's really easier when it comes for the end user, because end user will be able to not get a kind of a full idea first, but step by step we could able to get all the information from the end user without any issue, right? So if we go through this now, there are some points given here. So the first point, it's mentioning that this is a this depend on a new type of a entity, temporary type called virtual. So actually for an assistant, it's a new type of entity type, right? So I'll show you how we can get meta information about this new type of entity type, and also make sure that this temporary part is specifically mentioned here. So this is kind of a place that where we are keeping data in a temporary manner, not in a we are not saving things forever. We will be keeping data temporarily in these virtuals. It's kind of a new type of entity which is which we can store data in a temporary manner, and also it's known as virtual, right? So virtual actually there are some information about virtual, right? So virtual can do basically anything which normal entity does. It's kind of like acting as a normal entity, but virtual does not require a logical unit. It does not require a logical unit. Hence, it doesn't have any kind of a business logic or no restrictions attached to it, right? So for a virtual, we should like, we does not require a logical unit. We could have sometimes logical units connected to virtuals as well, but it's not required to have a logical unit. Hence, no business logic and no restrictions attached to it as well. And the other point is data is stored temporarily. So what will happen is when we are getting data through a assistant, we want to get those data saved temporarily in a location, right? We save them in a temporary way until we save them to a proper table where we could store those sorry, so where we are going to store those data in a permanent manner, right? Until we get them copied to the exact locations that we are going to store those data, we could have a place to store the data that we are getting from the assistant in a temporary manner. So those temporary manner data will be saved in this virtual, right? And there will be some keys generated. So I'll show you where these keys generated and what is the purpose of it. So there are two keys generated as object key and parent key. So obj key is something that is familiar to you, but still we will be looking into that. And there will be parent object key too. So I'll explain why there is kind of a parent object key is generated and when they are getting filled as well, right? So these are the information that we could point out about a virtual, right? So if you want, you can also go through the slides. It's provided. So these points are mapped there. So if you move forward, now there is kind of a diagram here, and there is another diagram here. Actually, there are two ways that we could work with assistants, right? So, like when you are working with assistants, there are actually two scenarios that we could work with the assistant, right? So, one scenario is that this is the one scenario, right? Assistant bound to entity set of a virtual. So, I'll explain this what is this entity set of a virtual and other things later. But let's have a look on what is this diagram first. So, as I mentioned, virtuals hold data. And in an assistant, there are two scenarios that we could work with virtuals, right? So when you are working with assistant, it is running on top of virtuals. So there are like, as I mentioned, virtuals hold data temporary, and also assistant can work or act as two scenarios. One scenario is that this way. It means that we kind of have two steps. So you can see that we have first step maybe to get some data, and in the second step we will be getting some more data, and we will be having a final action to complete our work or in order to save the data to the permanent tables. So as you can see, there are three steps here. One and two is to collect data, and for the third one it's for the final action. As you can see now, in the first and second, we all getting these first and second data to one, or maybe like if I go with like this. So basically what happens here is all the data that we are collecting from step 1 and step 2 will be added to a single logical unit. It means all those data is related to a one single logical unit. Maybe let's get it as country. Oh, yeah, let's go with country. So, country information. Maybe in the first step, we are asking the country name and the population. In the second step, we are getting the latitude and the longitude of the country and some information like that. So, they are related together and they are all for the single logical unit, which is country, right? So, in step 1 and step 2, they are like the data that we are asking has been logically grouped. So like something maybe based on the scenario, right? maybe like if we go for country, country name, maybe a country code like that, those information can be logically grouped for the first group, and other longitude, latitude, maybe some population information, or maybe something else can be have the steps to step 2 as another group 2. So these are like they are logically grouped as group 1 and group 2 based on the fields that we are requesting from the end user. But the thing is, at the end of all these two groups, they are getting for a one single logical unit. They are connected to one single logical unit. All the data is coming for a same logical unit. So that's one way, one scenario of assisted. The other way around is there also might be scenarios like this. We have steps, as you can see, we have step 1, step 2, and final step. In the step 1, we are getting some data, right? We are getting some data. Let's assume now we are getting some data about country. And the second step, what we are doing is we are getting information about areas which are connected to that particular country, right? So in the first one, we got information about country, and the second step, we will be getting all the area related information which are related to that particular country, right? All the countries information we are getting to the group 2, and there is a connection to this one, like they are depend on the country, but the thing is we are like working with other kind of a virtual set, or we are getting kind of a area information which are related to that specific country. So what the thing of it happen here is, based on now you can see that we have the country, and we are getting information which are connected to that country as areas. It means all the areas we are getting for that connected country. So then there is kind of a relationship between these two. So it's basically kind of like a array reference, isn't it? Like we are having a country, and for that particular country, the connected areas we are going to get from the step 2. So they are connected together, right? So they have a connectivity. So what will happen is, now as you can see here, we are getting one logical unit values from group 1, and the connected logical unit for that values we are getting from the step 2, right? Based on the connectivity connect for the virtuals, we are getting all those information, that so array of virtuals mentioning it as there. It might be like area 1, area 2, like that way we can give information based on the given country. It's how that works. So the thing is, now when you are moving forward in this point, right? So until we are finishing with this work, all the data will be saved, all the country information into the country virtual, and the area information to the area virtuals. So at the end of this process, we have to make sure that we are getting all the data to the actual database when we are getting out from these assistant. Because I mentioned that couple of times, we are keeping all the records here as in a temporary manner. When you are working with assistant, when you are working with these virtuals, we keeping all the data in a temporary manner in these virtuals. But the thing is, when we are ending our work using the assistant, we have to make sure that we are saving all the data to the necessary tables. We have to do that manually, right? And also, I mentioned that um, there is kind of like a connectivity with entity set. So what will happen is, when we are creating a virtual, uh, based on the virtual, we have to create a entity set. When we are working with a virtual, we have to once we done with the virtual, we can create entity set using that virtual. So then what will happen is, for that created entity set, we could use or we could connect assistant for those entity set, right? What will happen is, we are creating virtuals first, and based on those virtuals we can create entity set, and for those entity set we could connect assistants, right? So you might not you might not get the full idea, but the thing is, let me show you in our file set, so then you will get a more clear idea on that. So what we can do is, now if we go to the developer studio, so what I will do is, I'm not going to use the cast layer, right? So if we are going to use the cast layer, then we have to been customizing all the files and all the things. So I will keep the cast layer for a moment aside, and I'm going back to the core layer, trnent client files, enterprise handling and manage geographies. So using these two files, I'm going to show you how to work with this kind of assistant or virtuals, right? So what I will do first is, I'm going for the enterprise handling projection, right? And now I'm going to create a virtual. So if you can see, when we are going through the projection file, at the bottom end, not the bottom end, somewhere around here, there is a readable section or a specific section we could add virtuals here. So for this location, we can add virtuals. So let me give you kind of a small example to explain my scenario, what I'm trying to explain through the slides as well. So for this virtual, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to add kind of a demo virtual, right? So if we go with control space, we can get the help of IntelliSense. So you can see that the structure being generated here, virtual name and the block. So let me have this as the name as demo virtual, like this. And into that, I will be adding two attributes, right? Um, Attributes. One is, I'm adding it as first name. Oh no, not first name. Let's add it as a attribute one, just to show you how this been working, right? And we have to specify the type of it. Let's get it as text, and let me copy the same, and I'll get it here as attr2, and I'll make it as a maybe number, right? Right. Now this is how we could create the virtual. So virtual, name of the virtual and the attributes. Then what I will do is, I will save this, and I will generate code and deploy this. Okay. Now you can see there is kind of a scenario is going on here. Maybe I could show you for the exact output we got from there. Um, Enterprise handling SVC. Okay. So you can see now, mm, if you go for the output window, there are some information being nabbed here. You can see that there is a temporary table created. So creating temporary table, it's mentioning that they are temporary tables. And for that, you can see there is a temporary table created as enterprise handling demo virtual VRT. So VRT mention it as virtual, right? So even though this is mentioning as temporary, they are also same like the normal tables that is generated when we are creating logical units, right? So it's same, right? There is no kind of big difference. But the thing is, we are holding data in these tables in a temporary manner or for a short time period. That's the only like main difference that we can have a look when we are comparing with normal tables and these VRT tables. And there are some other kind of things created here, so you can see there is something like a constraint created as object key, and there are some information like here being generated. Now let me show you some information we can see from the generated files here. If we go to this SVC file, enterprise handling SVC file, and let's go to the here. Okay, so you can see now there is a table created as enterprise handling demo VRT, demo virtual VRT. And if we go a bit down, you can see that there is kind of a remove table kind of a code is here. And after that, there is a create syntax 2, as you can see here. So for that, you can see there are some framework attributes introduced too. So this object key is introduced from the framework. This parent object key is introduced from the framework. And this obj modified is introduced by the framework. Obj created by is introduced by the framework. So these four fields are introduced by the framework. But this ATTR1 and ATTR2, it is introduced by me. That's the field or the attribute that I have mapped. But along with that, you can see that there are four other kind of values being mapped here. So let me give you an idea of those things as well. So what is this object key? Object key is the framework key. So if you go a bit down, you will be able to see that it is mentioned as the primary key of this table, of this temporary created table, right? It is considered as the key of it. And then this parent object keys. So if you can remember, I mentioned that there are two scenarios when we are looking into a system. One way is that all the data will be connected to one single logical unit, and the other way around is that there might be one logical unit data and something connected to that logical unit. We are going to get data for that particular logical units, kind of like an array of virtual. So at that point, when we are having this relationship, so in these things, we have to like have some information about the object keys of the parent. So those records will be saved in that parent object key, right? So if I get back to here, so in this parent obj key, if there is kind of a relationship, the parent object key will be saved in those virtuals. But if it's not, then it will be blank, right? If there is a parent object key, then this field will be filled. And this obj modify, it's the timestamp, right? When we are modifying a data, there will be a kind of a timestamp added to the virtual or the table, right? So this template table, and object created by is the user who are going to create this, right? Who is the person who have created this record will be saved in this obj created by position. And other than that, I mentioned even though these are considered as temporary stable, still they are also same like the normal tables. So those will be only removed when we are trying to uh, execute this kind of a marble language syntax. Or otherwise, we have to manually delete those tables. Or else, if only this kind of a removed have been this method or this actually this call being executed only, those template tables will be deleted, right? If not, they will be there in the database. Even though we are not holding data in a permanent manner with these tables, still those tables will be existed. They are not getting deleted, just like when we are trying to get those data copied from that particular template table to permanent table. Table will not deleted, it will be existing. But when we run the script out, remove table, then only they will be deleted. So what will happen is when we are trying to deploy this to the database, it will first check whether there is a name, there is a temporary table with this name. If so, it will be deleted, and after that it will create the new table, right? That's how it works. And right, there are some other kind of information as well. Grant permissions and parent obj keys, all the indexes information are here. Maybe you can also go through this. And right, so other than that, maybe I'll show you how we can get information from the service document regarding these enterprise virtuals that we have created in the enterprise handling projection. So for that, what I will do is I'll get the call. Maybe let's try to get it from somewhere else. Right, we might have it somewhere around here. Or, mm, we want to get the projection, so let's see with the, okay, we have this, right? So I'm going to get this copied, right? And I'll have the enterprise handling part after that. To this, I need to have the enterprise handling. Okay, we have it here. I'm directly going for the metadata window to show you some information there too. So as you can see here, now we have kind of like meta information related to our enterprise handling SVC. So let me show you where you can find the new entity type as well. So if we go a bit down here, you will be able to see there is a new entity type known as demo virtual, and there are set of properties mapped here. So there are actually six here. So these things are coming from the framework. So logical unit name, key ref, and object key, parent object modified, and object key created by, those are coming from the framework. And the other things, these object one, attribute one, and attribute two, they are coming from what we have noted there, right? So as you can see now, there is an entity type being mapped here when we are creating a virtual, right? So hope it's clear for all of you. Can I get a raise of hand if it's clear how these entity type is mapped when we are creating a virtual? I'll give these links so then you can also try these things. And also I'll give the virtual code too in the chat. You can add this as a test code and see how your metadata file being changed, right? So in the notepad also I'll copy the data, or I'll copy the virtual that we have created in order to test it. Right. So what we can do is now, according to the exercise, we are asked to create actually two virtuals. If you could remember, maybe I'll get a quick look on our workshop document. So there we asked to create two virtuals in the third point as country virtual and area virtual, which hold country and area information. So what we can do is, let's try to create two virtuals here. So I'm going to work on the core folder, right? So you can also try this in the core section. right? In the enterprise handling projection, I will be creating um, virtual. So what we can do is, let me get the help of IntelliSense. And for the virtual name, we can get the copy of the exact name that is given from the framework, TRN country virtual. And as for the attributes, I'm going to map the country ID and country as virtual text, right? So attribute country ID text, and I'm getting the attribute country as text too. And then what will I do is I'll get the other virtual as well, which is area one, and let me add it here too. So I have previously created that, so I'm going to get it same. Now I mentioned that there is a relationship between these two virtuals. So how we can add the connectivity is we can have kind of a array reference, the way that we did in previous. Also we can try here. So guys, we are running out of time, but I will be getting 5 minutes of your time, right? And I'll complete this part. After that we can conclude the session. So if you have any urgent meeting or anything, you can leave the call, right? Maybe you can request the recording and catch up the remaining part, right? So what I will do here is now I'm going to create the connection of these two virtuals using keys, right? So in between TRN country virtual and TRN area virtual, I'm going to create the relationship. So how to do that? Let me get the IntelliSense help. So we have array, right? So you can see the definition here too, and how we can map it. And using that, I'm going to map the relationship between virtual TRN country virtual and TRN area virtual. So I'll have the name of the array as areas, and I'm using country ID for that, right? In order to keep this relationship, I'm using the country ID, and the data source will be TRN area virtual, and the key will be country ID, same like this. So I have created a relationship between those two virtuals, TRN country and TRN country virtual and TRN area virtual. So how I did was I created an array. Here we can give any name we like, and we have to mention what is the key we are mapping the relationship with. So it's country ID, and this is TRN area virtual, and we are mapping it with the country ID like this. And after that, what we can do is we can save this, and you can generate code and deploy as well, right? Maybe I could do so. I will generate code and deploy it. So if you refresh this, now you will be able to see the new information, right? So you can see there is a entity type TRN country virtual, and there is another entity type TRN area virtual, and there are some information being mapped, right? And also you can see that there is a relationship being mapped here using the navigation property. So we are connecting it with areas, and for that we will be like using the country ID, and using that we will be connecting those two together, right? So if you go for the metadata information, you will be able to see those information. And other than that, there is one more thing that is remaining that I want to show you all before concluding the session. So once we done creating the virtual, what we have to do is we have to now come up with these windows. It means first window we have a group. You can see that there is a group with country ID and country information to enter. And for the next window, the second part of it, we have to have a list in order to add areas related to that particular country ID. So what we have to basically have here is, first one, it should be a group, and the other one we have to have a list, right? So we have to have group for this first step, and for the second step we have to have list. So in order to do that, what we can do is we can go for the manage geographies, because it's the one we are working with the client and it's connected to this enterprise handling projection. So there I'm going to create a group, and then I'm going to create a list as well. If I go to group section, now we can add a group here. I'll give the code, right? You don't need to worry on that. So when I'm creating a group, I'm going to create the group using the virtual that I have created. So how I'm going to define it here? Group. We have the group option available here. And for the group name, I will give something like TRN country virtual group, something meaningful here. And for the data source ref, what I will refer in here is the virtual that I have created, TRN country virtual, right? So for that, I can add the fields I want. So the country ID and country I want in my group, so I can add them here. So for the list, in list, what we are doing is we are creating the list referring the virtual we have created here, TRN area virtual. And for that, I'm going to map country ID, area ID, and area information. So I could get to the manage geographies list section, and I can add it here like this. Right? So the next part is now here we have created a group and a list, and also we have created the virtual, two virtuals actually, TRN country virtual and TRN area virtual. So tomorrow we will be looking into using these virtuals, how we can create the rest of the system. And I mentioned that when we are creating virtual, using those virtuals we will be creating entity sets, and from that those entity sets we are going to use in assistant. So I'll show you how that path is mapping as well, and we will be looking into how to create this UI, and how to add commands, and how to go with the logics and all the things. And also I mentioned that data will be stored temporary in the table. So when we are finishing our work, we have to make sure that we are saving all the data to the proper tables. So we have to get them manually done too. So we have to handle those parts as well, right? So tomorrow we will be looking into those parts, and also we will be looking into translation. So how we can do the translation and all the things. So for today, I'm concluding the session from here. Before that, if there are any question related to these sections we have handled up to now, you can let us know. And also, I'll give the code in the chat too, these things, and I'll share it in the public share as well, right? Right. So these are the two virtuals. In the day 7, I'll add this in this location. And also, let me give the group and the list that I have added here. So this is the group. So you have to have it in the manage geographies, right? And also the list. Right. So you can try that out, and tomorrow we will be continuing from this point, and let's try to get the assistant up and running so you can complete these sections and get ready for the tomorrow session. So before concluding the session, if you have any question you can let us know. Anything? Okay, maybe while you're trying, if you're getting any questions, so you can point them out tomorrow session. And yeah, so thank you very much for joining today's session, and let's meet all on tomorrow, usual time. And thank you very much. Have a good
Thank,
day.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow.